Go Loud presents the Talking Bollox podcast.
What you waiting for? Put your back in it. Just a little more. Throw your weight in it now. Tell your body you're ten. Walk it hard and long. When you finish that,
The hip knocker.
go down, go down, go down. Come up.
Boom, here we are, episode 34, Talking Bollox podcast. It's me, CLB,
It's me, Teddy Flower.
and today we're joined by...
Oh, Nicola Tallant.
Wake up there, Nicola.
No, I was just introduced myself.
Well, of course, you're a big girl now.
Yeah. True.
So, I don't know how we managed to pull this one off.
My nerves are gone shit there, yeah?
Yeah, so, I don't even know what to say. I'm at the phone and the mic. I don't even know what to say.
How's things, Nicola? We'll start with that.
Excellent. Really good. And
Yeah.
yourselves?
Yeah,
I'm alright, I'm a bit nervous now, yeah. I'll let you know when I settle down. My heart rate comes back down below
Should I be
200.
nervous now as well?
Yeah.
Because there's two of you and one of me, and you're at one end of the table and I'm at the other.
100% you're
Yeah.
getting stung.
Okay.
Right, Terence, kick us off there.
Kick us off, right before I kick us off, fresh cut off the boys at 400, fresh t-shirt, 400 based in Cabra. What you think of that for the haircut?
Excellent.
Don't be flirting, Nicola. Right, jumping into the zingers from last week, yeah? Nicola, do you wear socks with sliders?
I don't wear sliders.
You don't wear sliders? Do you call
No.
them flip-flops or sliders?
Flip-flops.
I knew that off the bat. Do you call it a dressing gown or a gaff coat? Or a house coat?
Oh, a dressing gown.
Yeah, do you call it cinema of the pictures?
She definitely calls it
The
cinema.
cinema.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
call
you
it
call
curbs
it,
or
you call
pads?
it curbs as well, don't you?
Oh, definitely curbs.
Yeah, see.
Why,
Sorry
was there
about
another
what?
word for that?
What do you mean another word? There's only one word for it and it's pats.
Pats?
Yeah.
Never heard that.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, moving on.
Socks with sliders. People. Oh, why do I have yes and no down? Do you wear socks with sliders? Yes, 55% of people. No, 45% of people, yeah? Do you know Calippo Ice Pops?
Yeah.
Yeah, what would you rather, the orange one or the cola one?
The cola.
Oh, love that, yeah? But 69% of people said the orange Calippo, 31%
And that head
the
right,
cola.
orange beats cola all day.
Ah, get off me back. And then here we are, this is a tricky one
So
for
do you know,
you, yeah?
do you know who Marty Guilfoyle is?
No.
Right, he's probably
Absolutely.
the most
grand.
handsome man in the building. Shout out to Marty. He's a DJ in this building as well. Good friend of the podcast now. But we had him on last week, and we were talking about clippos, and he
Okay.
said, "Go on, tell him what he said."
He said, what you should do with your Calippo is put it in the microwave for 10 seconds
Yeah.
and then have it.
You should write a piece about him, Nicola.
Oh my God, that's
Yeah,
disgusting.
and that criminal,
That
isn't
is
it?
foul.
That deserves
That
an
is
article in the
absolutely
Sunday World
foul.
without
Yeah.
it.
I don't even know how he
Yeah.
still has a job.
Ugh,
I'd want him. We want Marty Guilfoyle cancelled. No, I'm only messing. Cut that.
But would you put a Calippo in the microwave, yeah or no?
absolutely not
Love that.
in
yeah,
a million years. would I
yeah
put it
love
in the
that,
cola.
Nicholas. She's dead
What's
right.
the percentage?
4% of people said you would.
That was Marty Guilfoyle off different accounts. But you know what someone said?
Him and
Smart.
his family, probably.
Yeah, do you know, smart. Take her out of the freezer and just run it under the hot tap.
Yeah, well, that makes a bit of sense as well, doesn't it?
10 seconds under the hot tap instead of putting it
Or
in the
else buy a
microwave.
drink.
Yeah, that as well, Nicholas.
Sorry about that, yeah. Well, there you are now, Marty. You'd want to grow up.
Yeah, that's a fact. Right, zingers for
What is
this week. I'll get mine one out of the way first because Calvin supposedly has a lately out there, yeah? But my out for this week is, what is it? Oh, yeah. Do you call it socks or stockings? Because me and Calvin got a bit of stick over saying
Yeah.
stockings the last few weeks.
We call them stockings.
Call stockings. But stockings not the things your granny used to wear, pulled up over their knee, that were the colour of
Are they not tights?
skin. No, they're only tights when they go all the way up. I think
Yeah.
stockings.
And what you call them when they come down? A good time.
Stockings stop, don't they? At
Is
the
that
top
what
of the
they
leg?
are?
That's
Yeah.
what they are. They're definitely not socks.
Right, Nicholas had to drop a bit of knowledge on us there. So what do we do with that? You now?
But Christmas stockings.
I'm confused.
Is that-
Christmas stockings.
Yeah, that's just like a big...
Yeah, they're definitely not nylon. Nylons is what stockings
Yeah, but like
were, I
a
think.
Christmas stocking looks like
Men
the ones
don't
that
wear
you put in your feet.
stockings, do they?
Stockings
Most men.
like stocks.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
socks,
We
definitely.
call them stockings.
Well, we're good with socks. Socks.
Right. Right,
Right.
well,
Socks
we'll
covers
ask the
everything.
question. We'll
Let's
ask
just
the
agree to
question.
disagree, Nicola. You,
Okay.
you call it socks, we call it stockings.
Yeah. That's my zinger for the week. Nicola, have you got a zinger with you, by the
God,
way?
No, don't move on.
Right, here's my one. So I come up with my one last week, and I was that anxious about it because it really does play on my mind and it keeps me up at night that I couldn't say it last week. So I said, right, I'll hold it for next week.
Shitting.
Right. So if I gave you a Rubik's cube, right,
Yeah.
would you take a year in prison or would you take the amount of time it takes you to solve the Rubik's Cube in prison? So you have a Rubik's Cube and you get sent to prison. You can either do 1 year and you're out, or the deal is you get out when you solve the Rubik's Cube.
I would do the Rubik's Cube.
Fuck that, no, I can't, Nicola, because I do think, like, imagine you couldn't get it and you're fucking up and all. I'm getting fucking sweaty palms and all talking about this.
I know what you're saying,
My
but
nerves are gone.
would you not back yourself in 12 months every day? You've nothing else to do. You're in 4 walls. Every single day at that Rubik's Cube, would you back yourself, no?
Have you ever tried a Rubik's Cube?
Oh, you have, and yeah.
See what I mean?
They're not easy, like,
You can
know.
also take them apart.
No, you're not allowed to do that.
Oh, you're not allowed.
No
You never
cheating
said that.
involved,
You never
no.
said that.
You have
but-
to solve the Rubik's Cube.
Okay. Well, I probably, yeah. I'd do
You'd back
that.
yourself?
Yeah.
No, I don't
I
know.
think I did it
don't know,
once
boys.
from
Would you
memory.
take but what have you solved that in 5 days? That's what going through my head. But what if it was 5 years?
Yeah.
And my nerves are gone.
That's what I'm
My back
saying.
is sweating.
Actually, someone I want to shout out.
Bit of gamble.
Our good friend Connor, who used to edit the podcast for us, he can solve a Rubik's Cube in 30 seconds.
No, we can't.
I've seen him do it. On my man's life, he can solve a Rubik's Cube in 30 seconds.
Can he?
Shout out to Connor. I'll get him to send us a video. No, that's probably a bit stupid because then you won't believe it. But I've seen him do it. In 30 seconds, he solved the Rubik's
I'm
Cube.
gonna
He's the only
FaceTime
person I've
him
ever seen
after
do
this.
that.
Yeah, that is lethal.
Yeah. So he'd be in and out. Yeah, I'll take the Rubik's Cube, be in and out the nick in 30 seconds.
Yeah,
But I still don't know what I
Jeez.
pick. So you take the years.
No,
or you?
I think you'd eventually get it. You
How
get
long
it.
do you think it'd take it to get it?
Well, you'd be in the cell, presumably.
sweet.
11
fuck
months,
all
3
else.
weeks,
Doing nothing else.
6 days.
Yeah.
So, I think you'd work it out. Do you
Yeah,
not?
I'd back myself as well.
I
yeah.
wouldn't
don't
work
know,
it out
boys.
in the outside world because I wouldn't have time, but I definitely would.
I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah, but there's a method to the Rubik's Cube. So, you know the middle square on the Rubik's Cube? If that's blue, then that whole side should be blue.
I heard that before, yeah. It doesn't
Yeah.
make it any easier to solve.
Well, it kind of does, because you know quite well if all the bleeding squares are red on the outside and the one in the middle
Have
is
you
blue.
ever done a Rubik's Cube?
I've tried it, I haven't done it.
Well then,
Yeah.
it isn't that easy even though you know that.
It makes it easier, I said, you dope you.
Yeah, but you still haven't done it.
I
That's why I
know.
said it doesn't make it
I'll
any
do,
easier
yeah,
to do it.
I'll do a stretch
I'm
on the
bringing the
neck.
Rubik's Cube in next week,
Yeah,
boys.
do.
Yeah, just so you know.
Yeah.
Nicola, have you got a zinger with you yet?
Keep you steady.
Yeah, a word. I need that, don't
Actually,
I?
that's what you need, a Rubik's Cube there.
It needs a bleeding clatter.
Calvin
Once you
just
oil it,
said
you
there off camera that he should be getting children's allowance from me.
Yeah, I have 2 kids. One of them is 24.
Yeah.
Fucking
But have you got a zinger with you?
I don't know, Aldi or Lidl?
Oh!
Nicola, you're too posh to be shopping at night at them.
Yeah, Marks and Spencer's for you.
Yeah.
Lidl, Aldi, I'm a great shopper in both.
Yeah.
What is the difference though? That's what you have to ask, nothing.
I don't know. I do hear people saying, oh no, the ones in Lidl are better than that. And I'm like, oh, come here, they're all the same, aren't you? The little bakery is whopper though. Do you ever get the croissants out of Lidl? Whopper.
Are they nice?
Whopper, mate.
Yeah?
Fresh every day, they're made, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Fresh. Well, that's all the zingers boxed off, Calvin.
So I'll have to get my head around that zinger thing. You obviously need to get into the mode. for
You're
it.
going to be on the way home later and you're
I
gonna
will,
be
yeah.
Just
turning-
give us a ring.
I
Yeah.
will.
And let
I
us
will.
know what the story is.
Ring Terrence, yeah.
3 o'clock in the morning.
I'll answer, don't be worrying, Nicola. Don't threaten me with a good time. But,
Yeah,
yeah.
something that we've been asked to touch on, and I don't even know how to get into this now, to be honest with you, because it's a weird one because it affects us every few years, and it shouldn't. And if you know someone who's been affected by it, you know too many people. Over the weekend there, we lost another life on the road on a scrambler,
Yeah.
a motorbike, and we've just been asked to touch on it. That look, lads, you need to be more careful on the bikes. Always wear a helmet. Don't be acting the bollocks. There's no need to be showing off. Now I get it. Going out on the bikes is lethal, but do it in the proper environment. Stay off the roads. Like I said, I know too many people already. If you know one person that lost their life over this, you know too many people that's lost their life over this. And it's always young people as well. So, like, I don't even know how to get into it, but, like, you're tearing families apart here. Like, it's...
Just
I
be
don't know.
careful on the road, boys. That's
Don't be
it.
on the road on the bikes.
Yeah, yeah,
They're
just
not
be
made for the
careful
roads.
out
Don't be on the road on the
bikes,
bikes, boys, honestly.
Mm.
But yeah.
That's all to say on that, isn't it? Just be careful, boys, yeah? Right, that's everything. We're going to jump straight in this week because our nerves are gone. 2 worlds collide.
Yeah.
That's all 3 of us, by the way.
Right, Nicola, what's your name? Where'd you come from? Bring
It's
us
like
back to
blind
the
date,
start.
Nicola.
It's like blind date.
Still a black sitting over here.
So, Nicola Tallant. I come from, guess where? South County
It's
Dublin.
definitely the south side in
Yeah.
any ways.
And I'm a crime journalist. So I work for the Sunday World.
Sorry to hear.
And I podcast myself, as we've been talking about. Bitter rivals, I don't think.
Yeah, well, I just want to throw it out there that you started your podcast the same time as we
Yeah.
started our podcast. Yeah. How long did it take you to get to number 1, Nicola? I'll just leave that there.
That's a
Not long,
hefty L
Calvin,
took
I'll have
off
you
the
know.
bat.
But yeah, no, that's mad. I didn't realise that because it's really not long.
No.
No.
It's
you
not.
know.
Oh,
And
we're winging this, Nicola. I don't know
Yeah.
how I am.
Well,
Don't tell the
Aren't
boys.
we
eh?
all winging
Yeah.
them? But yeah, there just seems to be a huge interest in them, isn't there?
Yeah, it's
And
the
you
new
know,
age.
like,
It's the way forward,
It's
Nicola.
absolutely. It's funny, like when you start by introducing myself or whatever as a crime journalist. It is actually the new journalism. It is
Yeah.
the future journalism audio in a huge way, and storytelling on audio, and it's a fantastic medium. I know you love looking at yourself there in the camera, but
I'm not even
I
looking
don't.
for it. Give me Shep a little gander again. No bet that
I
man.
don't like the cameras too much, but I love the audio. I just think it's the effects that you can just. Well, firstly, people are on the move, and they're they just don't have time to sit down sometimes and read newspapers. So they're out on their bikes or they're walking or doing whatever they're doing, and you can really gain a lot of knowledge from even a 20-minute podcast. I think they're great, and obviously you choose what you want to listen to.
Yeah.
It's not just on the front page of the Sunday World. You have an option. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so
Switch off.
you're from South County Dublin.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was it like growing up?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, it was good for me. It was good for me. I finished school. I had a very stable home. I sort of had lots of choices, but wanted to do journalism for some reason. I don't really know. Wasn't in the family. I just knew from an early age that's what I wanted to do. And when I left, sorry, I'm 47, right? So it's a long, long time ago. But
You're only a pup.
when I left, there was only one course you could do journalism in Dublin, or in Ireland, really. And we did 2 years, and you got a job. They were all waiting for you to come out of the college every year to give you a job. So it was, I mean, when you think of that now, what course does anybody do that they get a guaranteed job? Now,
IT.
you got, well, yeah.
That's where the
true.
money is.
Yeah,
Everybody
IT.
got on it.
Yeah, hindsight. But so, you started working kind of on, like, it's a trade journalism. I mean, nowadays everyone's doing degrees and masters and all the rest of it, but it's actually a trade. It's at its most basic. So you kind of do shift work, and when you're starting off, you'll take anything. You know what I mean? You'd work late at night, you'd go anywhere, you'd do anything, and you kind of need a second job to keep you going. I've worked in a restaurant as well. I was pretty bad at that, but I probably earned more at that for about 2 years until I kind of got established. So yeah, it's that's kind of where I came out of. But I've nothing, I don't think, very interesting to tell you about growing up, because
It's what we kind of do. We're all out
Yeah.
there. You know what I mean? We kind of strip back the label of who they are. It makes them. It
don't
kind
know
of
what I
humanises them more.
I'm not sure what I can tell you without, I don't want to sound, it was
Yeah.
just, it was like my father worked all the way through, and we would have been affluent enough without
Yeah.
being overly. He would have come from nothing, and my mother came from nothing, and I think they would have he had this sort of absolutely instilled in both myself and my brother, I think, that everybody was equal.
Yeah.
And my mother would have been somebody, she was very charitable. So that was there growing up, very much so. And I think it's something that I can recognise now as I'm older. I don't think you recognise where you come out of for a long time until you sort of start navel gazing in your 40s, and I think then you really see what made you.
Yeah. So you said you left college to walk straight into a journalism job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that in crime?
That wasn't, but it wasn't very long until I went into crime. So it was kind of like I was doing everything. I was doing all the sort of news stories of the day. But when I would have been about 22, maybe, thereabouts, I started working for the Daily Mirror in Ireland.
Yeah.
So they were a big UK newspaper, and there was about 3 of us here in a Dublin office, which meant we had to do everything. We had to do all the big stories of the day. There was none of this rewriting press releases. It was a real baptism of fire, actually. It was brilliant. And it was at the time that John Gilligan was being brought back from the UK. His gang had been seen as responsible for murdering Veronica Guerin, and there'd been a huge kind of trawl across Europe for them. And he was brought back, and other members of the gang were put before the Special Criminal Court, which was the first time that was used for gangland crime. It had been set up and was always used for subversives and IRA and everything. So it was down in Green Street, and there was 2 witnesses, supergrasses they were called, who had been in the gang and who'd sort of turned Turk and were going to give evidence. So their lives were hugely at risk, and they would have to come every day in armed guards, and there was snipers on the roof of the building, and you know, the whole of the city streets were closed off for these trials, and be going in and your bag would be searched like you were going into an airport. And I have to say, I just went, oh, I really like this, is what I want to do. I loved it. Not obviously the evidence or all the rest of it, but just the whole
John
sense
Gilligan wasn't
of,
actually convicted of that, though, wasn't he? No.
No, he was convicted on drug offences.
Yeah,
But
and
he
I
was-
seen something with you then. So
Yeah.
he was convicted on drug offences, and he done what, 18 years,
Yeah,
17 years.
yeah.
He got served 28 years though, and did 17 or 18 of them.
Yeah.
That's something I actually wanted to ask you, something that, because I've seen it in the past, and I wondered about it, and I said if I got the opportunity, I would ask you. So when he got out, you were outside Portlaoise prison, right? And you're talking about how he has a smile on his face leaving, and how it's a sad day for Ireland, and things like that. What do you mean by that?
I suppose with John Gilligan, while, say, I wouldn't have actually known Veronica Guerin, but she would have been a colleague as such because she was a journalist. And with John Gilligan, journalists feel a little bit, you know, you're not supposed to take anything personally and you're supposed to be very professional all the time. But with him, it's just the fact that he came after one of us, you know. And I think that
So what do you think would have been justifiable
for
for
the time
John
he
Gilligan? If
served
you
or
don't
whatever.
think 18 years.
Well, I mean, look, he served his time, he got out, and
Yeah,
you know,
because I remember
his
looking at it and
release.
sort of scratching my head and going, 18, yeah, like for drug offences.
There's murders down less.
Yeah,
Murders
that
down
was
half
a
that.
long- it
and
was a
that's
long sentence for
heavy
that,
old
yeah.
sentence. And then when
Yeah.
when I seen your interview, I was sort of like, do you believe in rehabilitation? Like, do you believe like people can change, especially over 18 years? Like, so much changes. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? I remember looking at that, going, jeez. And then there was something else. It was like, you just had reporters following him around and going to a house. But I was like, I'd be angry as well.
Yeah, do you not
know
think
what I
that's
mean?
Yeah, no, and
antagonising?
he wasn't angry at all. He played up to it, to be honest with you. He totally played up to the media. He came out and had a little giggle, and he posted photographs himself, drinking pints and all the rest of it. But, you know, in hindsight, yeah, we probably shouldn't have maybe
Yeah.
done
Is-
it that way.
Is that
but
not
it was
enticing
just,
and trying to provoke somebody for a reaction then, kind of?
well, I mean, sometimes you do have to provoke people for a reaction.
Yeah,
Sometimes
but like,
you do
but
have to.
this is someone who's had to serve 18 years in prison. Do you not think like, right, he's had to serve in his time now, let's see what he does, let him live his life, rather than follow him and try and provoke him? Because he could easily snap at somebody, throw a punch at someone, and then he's getting done on assault, he's gone back inside. Like that, it doesn't give someone a chance to move on. So like, just touching on what Taryn said, do you believe in rehabilitation through prison?
I do absolutely believe in rehabilitation. John Gilligan, though, was somebody who never showed any remorse for, and I don't want to get stuck on him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, neither do we, but
I'm
like,
sure, but
it's
like,
just a good example of that.
he was somebody who never showed remorse, and I think there was a lot of sort of unanswered questions there, and I think the reason that journalists were trying to get at him was to ask him some of those questions, but he sort of played a little bit of a game, and he
But
thought he was
you were never
funny
going to
and-
get an answer. So asking is just
no,
provoking.
no. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you do. You never actually know until you ask, is the point. Now, there's many's an uncomfortable thing you have to do as a journalist. Like, you can't actually be overly polite and overly giveish about everybody should be allowed walk on, nobody should be questioned, nobody should be. You do have to do uncomfortable things. And sometimes you are told to F off. I would be told
Well,
that.
I think
on
rightly
those
so.
calls.
But I think rightly so, though, Nicola. Like, if I done something and I'm trying to move on in my life and someone's following me asking questions,
Yeah.
like, you can't hold the fuck off. That'll be the
Yeah.
bare minimum I'd be doing now, to be honest with you.
But some people will want to talk and they will sit down and they will give interviews. And that's really the nature of journalism. You don't actually know until you ask. Now, there's ways of asking, especially with families of victims of crime or that
Yeah,
sort
and
of
that's-
thing. Be very gentle with that.
Something that we want to talk about as well. So what's it called? Doorstepping?
Doorstepping.
Doorstepping.
Yeah.
Like,
That doesn't
come on.
really happen anymore, to be honest with you. I
No.
mean, very rarely, no. That is sort of a thing of the past. I never liked doing that.
Can you just
ever.
clear up what that is for people who are not
Yeah.
familiar with it?
So that would be when it's called doorstepping. So doorstepping is like a number of things. Doorstepping could be when you approach somebody you want a reaction from, that you want a comment from, and you will approach them when they're not expecting you. So they haven't time to send a PR person out or to write a statement or something like that. So you could doorstep a politician or, whoever.
But I think that comes with the territory of a politician. You should be willing and ready for
Yeah.
this kind of thing with the media. But
Well, depending on what they've done, they're not always
Well,
willing
true,
and ready,
but-
you know. And actually, the more the likes of a politician, they will have staff to write a statement and to, if you come to them officially, sometimes you'll be told that you can't go. He's not going to go here. He's not going to go there.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's important to catch them off guard.
yeah, but that comes, like, they're prepared for that. I'm in the limelight, I'll have a PR team ready to rock. But
Yeah.
what we're talking about is, somebody could be shot and then, like, you're going to the mother's house then looking for a statement off the man.
I know I don't personally do that, and I think it is far less and less done.
I'm
I-
rightfully so, yeah.
I
That's
personally,
the height of disrespect in my
I
eyes.
personally think that there's a way of opening the door if somebody does want to talk to the media, because some people do, and some people want to appeal for calm or whatever. If something like that happens, I think something nearly as old-fashioned as writing a letter is a bit more respectful. Or you speak to somebody else. You'd often go maybe to the priest, or you'd go to a Garda liaison officer, and you'd just say, if they want to talk, I'm here, and here's my number. But
Well, that's why, like, we would have been heavily critical of you in the past in this podcast. You probably already know. And maybe we made it personal, not meaning it, but we mean crime journalists in general because of things like that. Like a crime journalist first thought when someone gets shot is doorstepping, is headlines, is media. Where when I hear someone get shot, I don't give a fuck what they do. Unless you're a rapist or something like that, I don't even know what allowed to say that. But anyways, unless it's someone like that, they have to go. I don't believe in rehabilitation for them type of people. But someone gets shot in the streets, I think straight away, like that's someone's
It's a
brother,
loss of life, yeah.
someone's son,
You
someone's uncle, someone's dad at the being murdered. Like, and it's a pity. Like, life is precious, you know what I mean? Like, you only get one chance at it. And then when I think like that, like, I automatically feel sorry for the family straight away, no matter what they did. Like, it's usually drug, violent crime, something like that, you know what I mean? And I straight away think of the family, but I know crime journalists go media, doorstepping, things like that. And that's where we'd be heavily critical
Yeah.
of journalists.
Because, like, if someone,
Yeah.
a life has been taken, a community has mourned, and a family is torn apart, and then you have a crime journalist knocking on the door to get a story. Like, where's the sympathy there?
Well, a few things. I don't mind if you had been having a go at me, because I know sometimes people think crime journalism, Nicola Tallant, and that's it.
Well,
and
that's
they don't
because you're at the
necessarily-
top of the game.
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
it goes for a few years.
That's fine, but
We just don't know the rest of their names,
know,
that's all.
And I won't
No, but
listen
like-
back.
I know, but yeah, now look, crime journalists and journalists, like,
Yeah,
like
and
No,
your
I
name
know,
has
I
been
know I'm
mentioned.
synonymous with crime journalism,
Yeah.
and sometimes people will go, "Oh, that story," and I've had nothing to do with it. I would never
Yeah.
have written about it. Or
Yeah.
I'd never have. So just, that's fine. But as regards when there is a murder on the streets, I mean, that is something that is a very important news story when that happens.
Do you not
And-
think there's a way of going about it, though?
Well, I mean, I do think there's a way of going about it, and most of the time, and most of the crime journalists will try. I mean, there's very few of them that'll be going knocking on doors. Usually, especially if you're talking gangland murder, there's very few journalists will go knock on a door, bang down a door.
yeah, but
for a reaction.
what
but
you're saying there,
some
like,
obviously still do, but
yeah, no, I know what you're saying there, like, but
somebody's murdered on the streets, okay? And we have so many examples, and we're not going to name anybody or go into examples. But it is a reflection of the society and what is going on within organised crime. And organised crime is growing and growing and growing. Over my career, it's frightening to me when I look at it, when I look at Ireland, where Ireland is sitting at the moment. I think it's frightening what's coming at us and what we're facing in the future, because this is a balloon and it is nowhere near popping. It's just growing and growing. And I think that reporting on it, debating it, discussing it, educating people on it, on what is actually going on and why there's somebody lying dead with a bullet in them and who they are. And yes, their sons, their fathers, they're loved, they're all those things. But we can't walk away and not report on it.
Of course, they're the benefits of it. But, like, my first thought, as I said, would be to think of the family where you and other journalists wouldn't. So there's obviously benefits to you educating people that this what can happen if you get involved in that game. Do you know what I mean? Like,
And then you said you do it to educate people on it, but do you not think in how you word a certain article, it kind of paints a different perspective and a different picture of the person? So, like, one thing I have a real problem with is, say, Terence. So it'd be like, 24-year-old man shot dead in Dublin, known to Gardaí. Like that, I don't know, what would you call
I've
that?
seen it.
Adjective, known to Gardaí. Like, I'm known to Gardaí. I haven't got a conviction, though. I'm not a criminal,
Yeah.
but I'm still known to Gardaí because I've had altercations with them. So if I walk out here and I get shot, that headline could be printed and it will be sustainable because I'm technically known to Gardaí. But from somebody who's, I don't know, someone in Kerry reading the headline, they just look and say, oh, there's another criminal off the street.
yeah.
I have to say, by and large, and speaking for myself and probably everybody else within my area of it,
Well, there is a tagline you've used.
we would be very careful, like when we're reporting. And I think by and large, I think we don't get it right 100% of the time, but I think most of the time we try and get it right. And if something like that known to Gardaí, I know, for example, if I filed a piece about that, the lawyers would say to me, has he convictions or had he convictions or whatever. So we do actually work under these very strict codes of conduct, which we've all signed up to, as in the newspaper, the people who own the business sign up to. And you yourself as a journalist have to work under a code of conduct. There's places for people to complain about us. There's the press ombudsman. There's the press council. They can write and complain. They can go down to the courts and they can sue you if you get something wrong. And in this country, you have to be very, very careful to get something right, because there is a compensation culture that has fed into that defamation and libel, as your producers are warning you guys about now. You're learning a little bit about it.
Well, we have to make the lads
So-
earn that money somehow, don't we?
And I think when you're, reporting on crime, you actually have to be so careful, because you're
but
making the
see-
most serious allegations about people.
Yeah, where I'd be thinking about that is, like, you're saying you make sure you do a backup and you make sure that they have got convictions and things like that. But where I don't like to see that is in cases of mistaken identity.
Yeah.
Because that still happens. Like, I know of a case where, I don't even want to say, but someone got shot.
And it was mistaken identity.
And it was mistaken identity, and they knew that, and it was mentioned in it, but it still said man, his age, known to Gardaí. And I'm like, why do you have to mention the known
Because
to
it
Gardaí?
kind of makes the killing justified then from the outside. People,
Yeah.
like, as I said, like, people looked at it and say another criminal off the street. And there was another case, a man was shot in mistaken identity in an area that's, I don't know, a deprived area. And some of the comments under it were like, mistaken identity, people like his family devastated, this, that and the other. And someone goes, well, what was he doing there in the first place then? And I was reading that and I'm like, oh my God, the first thing you say is, it says mistaken identity in the headline, the first thing you can think is, well, he shouldn't have been there.
Well, that's a comment put in by somebody who read
Yeah,
the
yeah.
story.
So the follow on
that's
to this,
not-
the follow on
I'm
I
sure
want to
you
put in
can
there,
see your own.
yeah, is I feel
Comment.
like the grammar you use kind of dehumanizes the person. So you know, you use words like blasted and stuff like that, and you're like, is it dehumanizing the victim of this crime?
I
Do you
don't
not
like
feel
that
it?
word myself, I have to say, blasted. I never liked that word.
You still use it though.
Yeah, well, I don't think I do, actually. I don't write that word. Like,
I've seen
so
it,
that's-
Nicola. But I'm not trying to sting you here. I wouldn't
we
do
have
that.
done our
but
homework.
perhaps it's used in a headline.
Maybe, yeah.
But so a journalist doesn't write the headlines,
Right.
And doesn't write the bits around, doesn't write the. We're getting into a little bit of technicalities here, but
Yeah.
So what a journalist does, I suppose, is writes the basic story, and
Right.
then there's an entire team that will write up headlines or will write, this, that, and the other. Now you can choose to not put certain language in. I do have particular words I don't like and I don't use.
And would you not, can you not go to whoever is doing the headline and say, saying blasted. If you personally don't like that and you're at the writing an article and they're picking the headline, they say blasted, would you not pull them
Well,
up?
if I didn't like a headline on something I'd written, I would, yeah. I
Yeah.
would. But I mean, most of the time, like I don't write a huge amount because I work for a Sunday paper.
Yeah.
And like we have actually, believe it or not, only gone online recently, so that's a big
Stone
monster.
age
But
girl
yeah,
there, yeah.
completely. But so, you know, I would, because it's a Sunday newspaper, I'm not on that quick turnaround beat. I'm usually not covering actual murders when they happen. I'm kind of covering the bigger picture around what's happened.
Right.
So I write about the organised crime groups. I write about a lot of what's happening in Spain, towards Dubai, other places like that, what's going on around them. So maybe I might write, if I did an interview with somebody close to a victim, I would write something like that. But it's not kind of that day-to-day beat stuff, which is covered by very quickly, and the internet, the websites are a monster. They have an insatiable appetite for stories. It's unbelievable.
Do you not think that's because it's low-hanging fruit? It's so easy to report on. It's cheap.
It's actually
throw
really
away.
hard to report on compared to what the other stuff that's coming in, all the celebrity stuff and all that. Crime is the hardest, and you're also probably have to be the most correct because
Yeah,
of.
but you said a few minutes ago that you aren't correct 100% of the time.
Oh,
But
yeah, but
in my
that's-
opinion, there's no room for error in terms
Yeah.
of
How sensitive it is.
I find like one of my main problems with crime journalists would be when you put so and so allegedly
Yeah.
done this or this, because I know of a case where a notorious figure got shot and 5 different people were put in the paper at different stages now. But they're putting is rumoured to have been there, is rumoured to have done this, allegedly done this, and I'm like, there's no room for error, and that's not an error because you say is rumoured or is allegedly. So
Yeah.
that's crime journalists covered. So you can't get in trouble for
And a
that.
follow on from that, we also know of another case of someone who was caught with a firearm in a certain area, and then the paper then put what figures live in that area. But the area now, it's the size of a county. And it was like, oh, they were caught on the way to kill this person. When it was false, there was no such thing. The person actually had to come out and address it. But that then puts that person in danger by saying, oh, you were actually on the way to shoot me away, well, I'm going to get you first. Do you not think there's like literally no room for error because it's so sensitive,
I do
it's so
think
delicate?
there's no room for error, but like human beings make
I know they do,
mistakes sometimes.
but do you not think your mistake would lead to more bloodshed?
I think if you made a mistake, you correct it as quickly as you can, and that is what we do. If you make a mistake, it's proven to be wrong, you correct it as quickly as you can, and you try. Sometimes actually, you know, you sometimes are better off not doing that because, and it's up to the person. If you've got something wrong, it's up to the person whether you do that, but you're sort of highlighting it again. But
Yeah,
it's
but
up to them. But
It's very hard for that person to come out and defend themselves. So, like, if I was caught with the gun, I'm not going to come out and say, actually, I wasn't going to shoot that person. I was going here with the gun to do this for that person. They're not going to come out and incriminate themselves. So, you're kind of
look,
covered that way.
I have to say, talking for myself and talking for the Sunday World, we have always had an open door. If we've got something wrong, whatever way you need to communicate with us, if we have got something wrong, we'll correct it. And that's how we operate. And we try our hardest not to get something wrong in the first place. And we have layers and layers of, like if I write a story, it goes in and it is read, it is legaled, it goes through subs, it goes through about 12 pairs of eyes before it is published. So it's really unfortunate if there's a small error in it. But there can sometimes.
Yeah.
It
Well,
just
that's
kinda
like we
happen.
said. We sort of nearly made it personal
Yeah.
before by mentioning your name when that wasn't the intention. The intention is crime journalists in general, and you're at the top of the game basically. So you just throw your name out there, you
That's
know.
all right.
And then I've
We
seen
have
you
got
saying-
examples, Nicola, that
Yeah.
we have got chips on our shoulder about where
Yeah.
you personally, where you have
Yeah,
wrote this piece.
where I was
Okay.
going towards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would be, what would your perception be of the inner city?
What is my perception of the
Yeah.
inner
Yeah.
city?
Look, when you think of the inner city, what do you think of?
I think of where I work.
Right.
I think of a very loud, noisy place
Yeah.
Right.
with loud, noisy people who are often very funny.
Thanks for that, Nicola. I'll take that one.
And That's what I think of it. I mean, I in a way, I've worked in there for 10 years, so I feel slightly part of it.
Yeah.
You know, I walk up the street and I get, you know, sometimes people are very, very amusing, sometimes they're not so. You know, I know a lot of the street traders going up and down. I know plenty of people.
Yeah.
So I don't have a bad feeling about it, if that's what you mean.
In terms of crime and drugs and things like that, you'd be like, probably statistically, it's the highest. But I'd feel like you give the inner city, like, you give the perception of the inner city, you make that worse than what it is in terms of, like, just a quick example here would be, do you remember the RTE presenters had a Christmas party and they breached COVID
Yeah.
rules and things like that?
So it was last Christmas gone.
Did you ever,
yeah.
did you report that?
No. Well, I didn't personally, but...
All right,
Yeah.
but then we see a thing on Twitter. I seen a thing on your Twitter then about people in Dublin's inner city out partying.
That was
during COVID, and you stayed like.
That was flats. Yeah, we won't name the flats, but there was a block of flats. They had an amp, and it was a bit of an open air.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and you're like, oh, look at these fuckers while businesses are going out, and I'm like, all right, why report the inner city one and not
So
the big media company?
6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
Like
kind
now
of
you
thing.
could say I can't report everything. That's an
Yeah.
easy answer for you to say, of course. But I think a huge media company over a couple of lads in the flats having a few bottles with a speaker, or if you want to call it a rave, but it's not a rave.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about there, all right.
Say you do.
I suppose, look, I comment on plenty of things on Twitter, and I don't comment on plenty of other things on Twitter. Like everybody, I dip in and out of Twitter.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I
You
think
know?
you have, like, people read your stuff and think it's to, like,
It's
the
gospel.
highest standard.
Yeah.
It's gospel. It's like the paper. People, like, read the paper and think gospel. If it's in the paper, it's real, and we're like idiots, like, because not everything is real in the paper. You know what I mean? Like, do you think the media cover crime, violent crime, drug crime, more than the media, like, than it occupies in reality? Do you think it's more put
And we're
out there?
talking about the north inner city here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or
Okay,
anywhere
so-
for that matter, really,
Well,
with the latter
No, well,
question.
well, no, let's
Yeah.
talk about
NRC.
there for the
Talk
moment,
about
because I
NRC,
can
yeah,
kind
'cause
of...
that's how we relate it most.
I can
Yeah.
kind of explain some of this
Yeah.
to you.
Yeah.
So, I did a broadcast course a few years ago, and even though I'm this long in journalism, I learned something which shocked me, and it was that 95% of news comes in to newsrooms from interested parties. Okay? So you follow whatever the news of the day is. You spoke about that tragic incident at the beginning of the podcast about the scrambler, something
Yeah.
like that might make news or whatever. But by and large, most of what is reported, be it on RTE or in newspapers, is actually coming in from interested parties. So be they politicians, police, whatever.
So there's an agenda behind what's coming in, is what you're saying.
Well, in the north inner city, there is a huge amount of community and drugs, groups working with people with drug problems.
Yeah.
There's a huge amount of funding going into the north inner city. I'd say almost disproportionate for the size of the area. It's
Yeah.
probably the most funded place in the country. And as a result, you have a lot of news coming back out of it. So a lot of the news that we report from the north inner city is generated from within the community groups themselves. And I can tell you from when I started off reporting for back in the days of the Herald and the Evening Press, dinosaur, I was up and down to the north inner city like a blue arse fly, speaking to community groups, speaking to, new projects that had got going, all of this. And from their point of view, they want the funding to continue. They believe there's a problem in the area that they can fix. And because it's taxpayers' money that is funding it all, they actually have an obligation to give back a little bit of information about how it's going, or whether they need more funding, or whatever. So a huge amount of news that comes out of the area is coming out of the area.
Yeah, I
it's
get you,
not as
but-
if it's been generated by the media.
But yeah, I don't know. Like,
Well,
I know
that's
what
the-
you're saying.
that's
Like,
the
that was
fact.
sort of like a roundabout way about it. Like, but in terms of violent crime and drugs crime, do you think it's covered more than it is in reality? Because I can tell you, I'm from the inner city. I can bet 99% of people can go through the inner city without being involved in violence and without being involved in drugs. but there's that 1%. But that's everywhere, you know.
You get that in any city.
You get that in any city, but like it's
Yeah.
made out like if I was from a middle or upper class area, right, and all I read was papers, I would automatically think I am never walking the streets of the inner city. I'm definitely not going near flats because I'm going to be shot
Yeah.
or I'm going to be stabbed or something's going to. When that isn't the case, like I can tell you, I've never had a problem in the inner city personally. I can't speak for everybody, but like I said, 99% of people don't have that.
Yeah.
But that 1% that is covered by the media is made out to be a lot worse than what it is.
And I think sorry, go on.
I think you agree to an extent.
Well, I mean, I actually don't. I'm not that obsessed with the North Inner City
We are.
because I'm writing about exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
That
we
was
can
the
only
point I
speak
was
about what
going
we
to
know,
make.
Nicola, you know.
So I'm writing about places all over the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm writing about places in Galway,
Yeah.
in the north, Cork, Sligo, West. Like I am literally the Midlands. I'm writing about communities and areas everywhere that are suffering from exactly the same problems. And I'm writing about the same things. They're just a gang with a different accent or whatever, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm writing about gangs in the UK. I'm writing about gangs. So I'm not actually that engaged with that. But I
Yeah.
understand where you're coming from because every time that's what you're hearing.
Yeah. And that's what we see, like, because like people, like I said, people are oblivious to reality. Like,
Yeah.
like middle to upper class people. I'll give you a couple of examples. Well, I can't. I'll give you an example. It's like if I'm out. So me and Calvin, when we first met, we were actually talking about making the podcast. We went for a coffee. Where were we? Where was that place when we went swimming?
Blackrock.
Out in Blackrock, right? And we went in to get a coffee, right? And this is just one quick example. I'm in a tracksuit. I talk the way I talk, and whatever, I'm a bit loud and whatever. I don't really have an education. These don't know that though, yeah. But you can tell by the tracksuit and where I'm the way I'm talking, where I'm from. I remember saying to Calvin, yeah, grab us a cappuccino there, whatever, and I was talking to him. And a woman beside me grabbed her handbag automatically, pulled her in tighter, and moved to the other side of the room. Now, I wasn't going to say, what are you doing that for? But I remember thinking in my head, I know for a fact that people from middle to upper class areas have this automatic thing in their head that everybody in a tracksuit with this accent is involved in crime, drugs, or
So that's
anything
what I
like
wanted to say. So I think that crime journalism and how they report has put this perception and made it socially acceptable for people to degrade
Discriminate.
our areas and be like, well, if you talk like that and you dress like that, you're a scumbag. And we done a piece with the Journal a few weeks ago about how our area is being gentrified and the people who are brought up and have made these areas are being pushed out. And people just, you can tell it's a 7-minute long video or something like that. You can tell someone only watched 30 seconds of it because the comments underneath that, like their accents, incoherent accents. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, how we ever going to stand their ground and back ourselves up and we're not even given a chance by how our accents sound. So I think that how you report, not just you in general, I mean you as in crime journalists, you've put this on society to be like, well, if you think they're scumbags, that's okay.
But you see, again, you're reading the comment underneath the
but
story.
it's
not
from
the
your
actual
writing.
Well, I don't think any crime journalist is saying that people who speak a certain way are scumbags. I don't think. Absolutely.
But I think
You'd
your
be-
perception...
We talk
Yeah.
about being cancelled. You'd be cancelled if you came up with
But
anything.
it's a
I think you're
disproportionate writing about these areas and how the crime is highlighted. So that's why this is what founded this podcast,
Yeah.
that the negatives in our area are highlighted and magnified. And what's not highlighted is a success. And this is the reason why we're constantly harping on about the good that comes out of our area. Even now, Kelly Harrington, congratulations to her. She's going to be fighting for, minimum she's coming home with a bronze medal. Yeah, she could come home with a gold or a silver, and we will sing that from the rooftops. Her and Emma Brennan are from our area, and they're over in Tokyo representing our country now. And the reason why we keep going on about it is because we feel like it's not covered enough.
what he means to that
But
is that-
sure, it was top of the news this morning on RT.
Yeah,
It's the
but
front of every newspaper.
this morning, but we feel like it's outweighed by when a negative happens, that gets blown up more than when a positive happens. And that's why we feel like that needs to be covered more, and that's why we'll shout louder than the average person who, I don't know, and in a community where maybe it's expected. If you had like a Roman community where it's expected for you to go on and medal in the Olympics or the World Championships, we have a boxer here who's medaling constantly in World Champions, medaling in the Olympics now, medaling. We'll shout louder than them because we feel like we have to, because we've been degraded, we've been pushed down, we've been oppressed in this area because of these kind of writings. What are you going to say?
Yeah, no, but I think what he's trying to say that is the misconception comes from the things that he was put out there. In terms of like, I seen another thing that you put up. I did a bit of research on you, Nicola. Yeah,
Go on.
I had to come prepared. But
right.
see the thing, like you, I don't think you realise how
The effect.
the effect that
Yeah.
your words, because people look at you, Nicola Tallant, the crime journalist. She knows everything.
Yeah.
When
The
you,
accolades you have, you're well respected in
but you
that
are
industry.
respected,
You know.
and not even just in that industry. I respect you for coming in here today. Fair
Yeah.
play to you, you know what I mean? And I do appreciate you coming in. But you put a thing up in 2017 saying, baffling, the North Inner City wins an award for being safe and secure. And like, you need to understand that, like, people from middle to, I don't want to keep saying that either, but people from middle to upper class
People
areas,
from outside the area.
from outside, that's what I should be saying, will look at that tweet and go, baffling, whatever, and just
Like,
automatically look down
and
on
say
it.
that place is a war zone.
I honestly don't even know what that was about from 2017.
Well, we supposedly won the award for being safe and secure, which is
That's
grand,
what-
isn't it?
But I said to you, Calvin, I do a little look before I came in about the
here we
kind of
go.
reporting
Yeah.
that was about the North Inner City, and I did that.
Yeah.
I did a
Yeah.
little bit of research
Yeah.
on it, okay? So over the last, say, 2 or 3 months,
Yeah.
there have been stories about funding
Yeah.
into the area. 170 million government funding is going into the redevelopment of Smithfield and various
Yeah.
other areas, okay? And that, there was a lot of reporting on that. There was a lot of reporting on Kelly Harrington being from where she's from, actually. There was about 3 or 4 major big articles about her, that she was the pride of the North Inner City. And this was now weeks ago. So it's not necessarily not being done. It's maybe that you don't see it.
But do you think that so what,
There was
what,
well, hang on a second. So there was
Okay.
so there was that, right? Then there's been a row between the North Inner City Task Force or Drugs Task Force or something and their funding. So that was covered, and it was covered on the basis of how necessary it is. Okay, there's an individual being released who we won't mention by name. That got a lot of coverage, being released from prison. And that brought it back into the coverage, back into the feud, which has, taken up a lot of crime coverage over the last
too much?
the last 6 years. But not just because of the North Inner City. I mean, the feud coverage has been obviously a global
Yeah.
thing, and has made its way into the coverage of sport, etc. And it's not only by the Irish media; it is an international story, legitimate one. And then there was a story that was about a very tragic circumstances. A mother had died and the children were left. And the story was how the community had come together to raise money for these children. And that, I thought they were pretty... It was a bit of an eye-opening exercise for myself, actually, after I told you I'd do it, because I actually thought the coverage was quite rounded from the area.
I disagree.
I completely disagree, and not disagreeing just to disagree. Like what we said a few minutes ago, the bad in media will always outweigh the good. So when you talk about the North Inner City being this violent place, this drug
War zone,
infested
essentially.
place, a war zone really is what the media would tell you. When you talk about that, like people from other areas other than the inner city will see the Kelly Harrington thing and go, fair play to her. And fair play to journalists for
And you know
reporting
what?
on that and
Probably
giving it that
they'll say
space.
like, fair play to her for making it in that area. Like, oh my god, that's a war zone she's in.
That's what's always stayed.
And the perception. I can give you personal examples, Nicola. Someone only sent me a message before I come over here, and they said they came from an affluent background, and they said, I feel like a snob now because when I used to drive through your area, I used to lock my doors. And I was like, that's crazy, like, because I'm 27 years of age. I've never seen someone be torn out of a car. Growing
Like-
up, you know.
Like, can you not see that? Like, I know
It
they
is
can
having
cover
such a
it
negative
everywhere.
effect. It's not actually educating people. It's probably making people more judgmental and having a prejudice as opposed to educating.
So it's difficult for me because I'm not 100% sure exactly what stories you're talking about, exactly what newspapers you're talking about. I'm trying to
All
defend
time
something
journalists.
that because like you're kind of throwing out generals, and I'm not trying to defend everything. I'm not here to defend
Yeah.
everything. I've said to you that I don't agree with certain words being used and all. So you can only kind of do what you do yourself and do it as well as you can, and operate in different medium, be it audio or television or newspaper or whatever. I do think that you're only hearing, in a way,
The negative.
you're hearing the negative. You're accusing the media of only you know, projecting the negative, but I think you're only hearing the negative. I think you're ignoring the positive.
No.
And in that little
No,
example
no,
I
no,
gave you,
I agree with you
there's
to an
actually
extent.
quite a lot of positive.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I agree
Well, let's
with you
talk
to
about
that
the
extent.
coverage, right?
Yeah.
So if we want to talk about coverage, you mentioned the feud. Feud peaked in 2016 when
Yeah,
it kicked off, right?
yeah.
So also what happened in 2016 was the Euro Championships, yeah? Euro 2016, Ireland were over there. You gave me a statistic and you said the feud was on the front page of a newspaper
Yeah.
for 57 days consecutively, right?
Yeah.
And my argument back to that was why they were in the wrong is Ireland's opening game of the Euros was against Sweden. It was a 1-1 draw. So our first point in that competition was, well, I won't say single-handedly, but the goal scorer was Wes Hoolahan. Wes Hoolahan is from Portland Road, born and raised in Dublin 1, working class hero. And I think that was completely overlooked.
I guarantee you that was on the front page or the back page.
Probably the back page, but on the
But
front
that's
page
where
saying it was
sport
all...
is.
Yeah, I know what you mean. But I've also seen sports persons on the front page for the right reasons.
But
Well,
they-
at the odd time they would definitely, yeah.
That would probably just be looked on as in Wes Hoolahan scored today against Sweden, and the next day then it's another sport article, not highlighting the fact where he's from, like he's a working class hero. He played for these teams or whatever. You know what I mean?
And the reason why he says that is because the media is quick to say when it's negative, it's Dublin's not inner city.
Yeah.
But when it's positive,
And they
it's
drag the life out of it.
Dublin's not inner city. Do you know what I mean? And like you said there, I justifying the negative bit being on the front page for 56 days in a row. Like,
Well, it wasn't my paper.
Oh, no,
and,
I know, but I'm just saying.
I know that did get an enormous amount of coverage, but it was an enormous story on the national stage from a crime point of view. The sports coverage of Wes Hoolahan and the sports coverage of Kelly Harrington makes it to the news pages when, you know, something like what happened last night happens, obviously. But by and large, sports coverage is kept within the sports pages. It's just by the very nature of the newspaper as such. But I mean, then you have TV and you have radio. I mean, I woke up this morning to Kelly Harrington being top of the news all day long. RTE were down in Portland Row.
so
Everybody was out last night covering the... and I can guarantee you, when there's a homecoming, it'll be top of the news.
And what we're saying is rightly so,
Yeah.
but like I said, this is something that we'll shout louder for.
yeah, well, of course, because we're from there. And it
but
makes sense.
It's because we've been constantly highlighted for the negatives than the positives, so we have to make our positives shine brighter.
So, Nicola, do you think we're mad here and that we're just Dublin's North Inner City proud and we're just trying to justify things? Or do you actually see that there is... You can say, no, I'll disagree with you, but do you not believe that, like, the
There's a
inner city...
disproportionate reporting on the inner city with crime.
A disproportionate... I don't know. I mean, I don't know actually how to answer that because I haven't... You'd need to properly look at
into
that
it.
to
Yeah.
see if
Yeah.
it is disproportionate. Like, I could name another handful of places that I write about all the time or do stuff on all the time as well. So I don't know whether it's disproportionate. But I have to say as well, because we're going into the technicalities in a way about stories and media and front pages and back pages and all that. But maybe what's more important is that you're talking about good news stories, good news stories. Good news stories, in the end of the day, media, newspapers, for example, are businesses with shareholders, okay?
Exactly, and that's the
But
problem
that's what
we
they
have.
are. But it's not a problem. That's what they
Yeah,
are.
it is a problem,
They're
though.
a business with shareholders.
Yeah.
So they are trying to make money. So that's what they are. While there is a kind of a, you know, they are part of the state, the media, as in it is there for a reason. It still is a commercial entity. They all
Yeah,
are.
but that-
bar RTE, which we all pay for.
Yeah.
That's why it is a problem, though, because the media will only write about the things that sell. You don't see the media writing about white-collar crime. You don't see them writing about tax evasion.
Yeah.
But they know violence, drug, sells. It sells in the paper.
That is 100%. Of course it does. And they're not going to... You would not have any product in the world that you would put out to a consumer that didn't want it. You wouldn't
Doesn't make
change
it
your
okay
product.
to highlight it and keep
you're-
highlighting it. You make sense of everything you're saying. Obviously, you're going to come in, you're going to have answers. I just can't comprehend the fact that you think the inner city got a fair shake in the media.
Well, I didn't quite say that they get a fair shake in the media.
You said it
I'm
sort
just
of
saying-
rounds up.
No, I'm just saying what I looked back
Yeah.
on over the last 2 months.
Right.
That's the kind of stories I saw. So I saw a variety of stories. I didn't just see crime stories. Now, I want to go back with you to the comments being made under stories. So you're getting your media on, some people get it on Facebook, some people get it on Twitter or whatever. Instagram? No, that's a bit dinosaur of me to say. You don't get your media on Instagram. But, you know, you're getting your media. Like, I mean, I know we disabled a lot of the comments
Yeah.
on our stuff because they were so bad. But not only about the North Inner City, they were so bad about me. They were
Yeah.
so bad about, I mean, horrendous stuff. I have blocked people all the time. Those comments, I think social media can be a really horrible place.
100%.
And actually, when you look at the comments, and so many people, I just say to them, don't look at those comments. Ignore them. Don't give it the time in your head to be looking at them, because that's where the nastiness is. And as a reader, I'm sure you're forgetting what you read, and all you're seeing are these bloody comments saying to you what is in your
Yeah.
head.
But
Anyway,
this is why I said I feel like it stems from what they're reading. They get this perception and they feel like, oh, this is the narrative that's going on, so this must be true. And the thing about that is that spreads out and it falls into industries. And even like dealing with the Garda is a nightmare for someone like us, Nicola. Honestly, like I said to you at the start, I'm technically known the Garda because I've had altercations with them, but I'm not a criminal, I've no criminal record. But I get stopped from walking down the road because how I dress. I'm wearing a tracksuit, how I sound. And I get real pissed off about
That
it.
didn't just come from thin air. So
Yeah.
the reason why this comes is
We're
because
being
of the media.
profiled. And it definitely is because of the media. And the thing about it is, if someone is stopping you and they're being a certain way with you, it is frustrating. So obviously I'm going to defend myself. I'm going to be like, well, what are you doing? And I'm going to give them hassle back if they're hassling me. And it's horrible to deal with. But I feel like it's from what they're reading. You know, it's from, this is the perception. If a young fella is wearing a tracksuit and he sounds like this and he has a new phone or he's in this kind of car, more than likely he's a criminal. Where the way I look at it is, I work hard for everything that I have. Yeah, I'm just a product of my environment. Yeah, I like flashy material things. Most young fellas do in town. Doesn't make me a criminal. You know what I mean? And the real reason, right, Nicola, well, I wouldn't say the real reason, the main reason we were critical of you and I have a chip on my shoulders, I heard you on a different podcast and you made a comment about people in their early 20s going on big holidays, and you're like, how can anyone that age afford this? You think their parents were .com millionaires, right? And you mentioned Vegas for McGregor fights. You mentioned Dubai, and you mentioned the Far East in Thailand, right? And the reason why it really rubbed me up the wrong way was because I just come back from McGregor fight in Vegas, and my next holiday was a stop off for 5 days in Dubai, and then 2 weeks in Thailand. And I remember thinking, like, Jesus Christ, if anyone listens to this and then checks my Instagram, they're going to be like, I wonder what he's selling.
but you have a job.
I have got a job.
So you
Doesn't
can
mean I don't
afford
sell.
it.
Well, technically, I could still sell drugs. How do you know I'm not just working as a cover
Like
up
the
for the drugs I'm
perception,
selling?
Because when I am commenting on young guys like that, and I think you know I'm commenting on
But some of them work.
the ones, I'm not commenting on the ones who work. They're not the people I'm commenting on. In a million years, I'm commenting
Of course,
on the
but
guys.
It's easy to mistake that.
And I've had people say to me, geez, you're going away there, you're only back from there, what are you selling? And they're deadly serious. Deadly serious, what are you selling? You know what I mean? I should never have to be asked that question. What am I selling? If people know my background, know where I work, know where I've came from, they'd know quite well what I do. But I still get that, and I get this, and I'm like, look fuck it, it is what it is.
And do you not believe that misconception comes from statements
And the
like
media.
that and the media?
It has to be.
That if you're
Nicola.
in your 20s,
I honestly, I don't know whether that comes from the media. I don't know whether that comes from the media, or do you not think that people see for themselves that
No,
kind
I
of thing?
genuinely
I
don't
do.
think-
I think people in communities can see for themselves what is the spend is going on from kids who are selling drugs. I think people can see that. I don't honestly think they need me to tell them that.
But I feel like you're kind of glamorising that lifestyle. You're highlighting what they're doing more than the people are themselves. So, Like that thing about giving people nicknames, like Mr. This or there wherever. Like what's all that about? They don't call themselves that. Well, they probably do it as a
Sometimes
joke.
they do,
As a
actually.
joke.
Yeah, sometimes they do call themselves
I think
that.
it's more comedic, as in like, oh look at me, I'm such and such now.
Yeah.
But it stemmed from what you've wrote about them in the paper.
Well, usually that the nicknames are their own. Sometimes there were nicknames given
Because
to
you
criminals.
can't mention the name
'cause
in
you can't
the
name
paper.
them.
Yeah, but...
You can't name them because they could sue you.
Yeah, of course.
And because they didn't have convictions. So that's why. I mean, there's a particular criminal at the moment, and everybody just refers to him as Mr. Big. I don't know exactly where that name came from. It's not hardly rocket science, Mr. Big. Like, it's a bit like most of the names are just silly, really. You know what I mean? But it's purely for the reason that, you know, you'd be shut down, you'd be cancelled.
So do you not think that gives you a kind of safety net to say whatever you want about someone if you refer to them as that nickname, but everyone knows who you're talking about then? You kind of take the liability away of like, well, I can say what I want about Mr. Big.
That would be the plan, but it doesn't quite work like that because you just still have to be careful and you still have to operate between what, you know, within the realms of what you do know about them.
Yeah, but then that kind of
And
stems
you'll
back to
even
what we
see
said.
with the Mr. Big thing or whatever, if you look at the language, you'll even see the alleged,
Yeah.
just because it's not
But
proven.
you're still putting her out there.
Or, you know, putting what like though?
A bullseye on someone's chest.
Yeah, like if I said to like Terrence,
Because you
Terrence
can't-
alleged to go and shoot somebody, like I'm still saying, like you'd still look around and say, oh Jesus, Terrence is going to shoot
Terrence
someone.
alleged.
I'll do it.
Terrence Big Balls.
But I mean, where we're going from that is that
Terrence Big
people
Balls, yeah.
people take the media as gospel.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know
And
what I mean?
all
And
I can
people
say-
people legit read the newspaper and say, no matter if it says alleged or it's rumoured, they just read it and go, that cunt shot that
And they
cunt."
attach
But
it to
I
it.
don't think you guys are reading. I think you
No, because
are
we don't need to,
reading
Nicola.
the comments after
No.
it.
No.
We've read enough.
But you can't be, look, you guys are being defensive about
Very,
certain
Nicola,
things.
because
very
we've grown
defensive,
up
within
with
your-
this,
I
Nicola.
know, but
Yeah.
I can be defensive too about the media, and you cannot criticise what you haven't read.
No.
If somebody came on here and said to you, your podcast is shite, and they hadn't even listened to it,
Yeah.
you'd be pissed
I've
off.
gotten it, the bars,
We've got enough of it because we know. We know.
Because you've worked hard on it, and it's something that you are proud of.
Yeah.
And what you do is you are actually coming to the table as a media. You're complaining that there isn't enough positive news coming
Yeah.
out of your own community, but you've actually got up and done something about it.
And and
And
the
you
reason
have
why we know there's not enough
Created
positive
a forum for it.
because how's this podcast has skyrocketed since episode 1, and the motive behind starting this podcast was to highlight the positives. So there was a gap there in the market to highlight the positives.
Yeah,
We
well,
knew that.
podcasting is a slightly different media anyway, as you know, from the kind of the original, the mainstream media. But what I'm saying to you is that I think you've done, it's like, you know, I'm giving out that you're being defensive and I can be defensive too, but actually you've done something about it and you've come to the table. You've created a forum where these positive stories can be told the way you want them told. But I think if you're going to be continuously critical about what's in the paper, you know, what has been reported, you should actually look and see what's been reported.
But this is
and
what I'm
take on
saying.
board.
We have, and we read enough of it to know what's going to come down the line again.
Like, that's exactly what we're saying when we say...
If you read 9 stories in the paper, you know the 10th one what it's going to be about because it's going to be very similar to the other 9. And what I wanted to say there was, thank God newspapers are a dying medium because I'm glad people are not going in and buying them because then they are under so much pressure to get what they're saying right and accurate instead of these just glamorous headlines to they catch your attention. And I'm glad this podcast has took off, and I'm glad your podcast has taken off as well, because podcasting is the way forward. It's open form, free platform for people to come on and listen and hear both sides of the story. Whereas before it was like, here's what's in the newspaper. Don't mind what the other crowd are saying. You have to read what we're saying. So it's like monopolised. Now I know there's different newspapers, so you can't say it's a monopoly, but I mean it's a closed circuit there. Like if
And
something's written in the
broadcast
paper
has
about
been-
me,
Yeah.
how can I come out and defend myself then? You know, so I'm glad that way of media and medium is dying out. And
But that's just the packaging. It's not dying out. The media's not dying out.
well, as you said,
Various- No.
no. I mean, them establishments.
It's getting drowned out.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, not at all. It's just migrating online.
Yeah, but how long has it took them to migrate online? It's 2021.
Well, it takes a long time. I think some of the first ones to have properly migrated are the New York Times, who are obviously huge. The Irish Times have now migrated online. Their subscribers, profits were doing very, very well over the last year. It's basically like if you think of your Coca-Cola, is it in the bottle or the can? So the actual newspaper is just, it's just a way of presenting it, but it'll all go online. And that's what's happening
But I
with
think-
media. So it's not going away.
Yeah.
Now, it's changing, it's evolving, and it's been evolving since I started in it. And part of that revolution perhaps,
Definitely
is
revolution.
the podcasting. And that is now, you're choosing what you want to listen to, you're choosing what you want to hear. If you want to
Exactly.
listen to positive news,
Go to Talking Bollocks.
go to Talking Bollocks, exactly.
But I think these are being more, when it's online, you will be called out and it's identified as clickbait. Like you might get a catchy headline and people are like, I'm not falling for that. They know people are evolving and they're realising what this is. So I'm happy because then you have to change your way of how you put an article out. Now, I don't I mean journalists in general.
Yeah.
So they have to change how you evolve and you're learning as well. And I think that's going to benefit everybody going forward, how news is being reported. Especially now when everybody's reporting. Like anytime you go online, there's a new news establishment. Because it's so easy to write an article and put it online and publish it.
Yeah, there's all sorts of citizen journalists out there, and some of them are a bit dangerous, a bit wacky, but I think ultimately there will still be that safety net that the kind of established media will be the go-to places for a lot of people to get their news, and, that's obviously what they have to be. And to be that, they have to constantly engage with various communities. I was saying to you, Calvin, we have had meetings with traveller groups, and they've been talking about some of the language they don't like in the paper.
Yeah.
So we've stripped it out because they've come and they've spoken and they've said, the reason we don't like this is because it offends us on this and level, and we've taken on board what they said and we've changed.
And which is good.
So we're constantly changing.
You're growing.
And constantly, but every day we learn something.
Come here, look
So
at every
that's-
day's a school day and
every
talking
day is
bollocks.
That's
School
the
day.
aim here. That's why,
that's
like,
it.
like you're
That's why we
sitting
had
across
you
the
on,
table.
Nicola, and
It's
this
not- It's not sitting here to sting you, Nicola. You know what I mean? Like, we're not bringing you in here to go, you said this, you're a blame, blah, blah, blah. It's
We're
not
trying to
that.
learn. We're
Yeah.
trying to learn where you're coming from, and we want you to learn where we're coming from.
And
And I
it
think the
does,
fact
like-
that people are going to see, Jesus, them three actually sat around together and done a podcast. It's two worlds colliding. Like,
Yeah.
never in a million. If you had said to me 6 months ago, you're going to have Nicola Tallant on your podcast, I would have said, fuck off, you're on something. Yeah, definitely, Nicola, honestly.
Yeah.
No, but it is like a sort of, like when I heard Nicola Tallant a few months ago, like you said, you're like, Nicola Tallant, crime journalist, blah, blah, blah. But like, this sort of humanises you. Like, you just come in and just say, well, look, listen, it is a business, or it is a job. You have to put out something that sells. It all makes sense. Again, I think it's all glamorised and over-exaggerated.
And the commercial aspect really does come out in it. And example I heard in the car the other day, I was listening to, I won't name the radio station, but the news come on, and they referred to a gang as a criminal organisation. And then when you referred to them as a cartel. And to me, I'm like, well, a cartel sounds more Hollywood. You think Narcos, Pablo Escobar, global, whereas criminal organisation to me just sounds like a gang.
Yeah.
Yeah, and criminal organisation is coming in. That is the word that's been used more and more and more. OCG, organised crime group.
Yeah.
And then the name on the front of it. And it's not only been used, it's an evolution that's happening within the guards, because they are now using that in the court. So it's going into official. So that the likes of the cartel, that word that emerged, actually at the time it emerged, there was a really good book called The Cartel. I can't remember the author, but it was brilliant. And that just fell into the language and started being used and being used and being used. That particular organisation, I would rather refer to them as a mafia, because that's what they are. But again, it's language.
It's glamorisation.
Yeah.
No, it's not glamorisation. That's what they are.
No, I get that, but it's like even cartel assassin and all. It's like most of the time that assassin is an addict who owes a few bob. You're gonna whack him for me, shoot him for me, whatever you want to call it, or else whatever's gonna happen to you. This whole thing of like the assassin and the cartel and the mafia is like, fuck off, will you? Like, you know what I mean?
Well,
Like, it's
actually,
not
funny
that.
enough, I've done a load of stuff, and including 2 podcasts on who is behind, who are the assassins.
Oh, here we go. Here's
And
that to make me look stupid.
exactly what I have done is
Yeah.
gone behind and found out who they were. And in particular, one group of them there was homeless people, there was people with low IQ, there was addicts who owed money, and absolutely find out who they are, where they're coming from. And that's where the education bit comes into it.
Yeah.
You know, and I've spoken to community
good.
leaders about that, and, you know, actually I was just pointing out that sometimes you're sitting in court and you're listening to this, it's usually when it comes to sentencing and they're
Yeah,
giving the little
it's
bits
too
of
late then,
background,
yeah.
and you're kind of throwing your eyes up to heaven a bit like, Jesus, I've heard this one before, you know. But we shouldn't do that. None of us should do that. We should listen to where they came from
Yeah.
and why they found themselves, you know,
You see,
pointed
this
at
is what
vulnerability.
we want to hear from Nicola
vulnerable.
Tallant. You know
Now,
what I
Nicola,
mean?
you've said that you've been we had a phone call organising this, and when I got off the phone to you, the first thing I said was, she's actually very understanding of us, and we talked about the amount of addicts on the keys and how you were saying it's heartbreaking because these people are just left to the wayside. And we both agreed that
Yeah.
they're looked at as statistics rather than individuals. So this is why we need to change this going forward, like people's perceptions. When you look at a criminal in court, you need to realise they didn't get there overnight. You know, it stems from
100%,
somewhere.
yeah. And I mean, I think that's why we all have to talk about it, and we have to recognise that we're actually all responsible for it. I really believe that. Every single one of us is responsible for, you know, a kid coming up, and they're usually, kids who get involved in crime are usually from a home where there's problems.
Trauma, yeah.
And why aren't we reaching into that home and just stabilising the environment for the child until, like, it's actually not a big, huge amount of life that they need to just be steered.
No.
You know, it's not, I'm not saying walk away when they're 16 or 18 or something like that, but there is actually just a small period of time in a kid's life, growing up, a teenager's life, that they become assholes, because
Yeah.
they all do, whether they're from underprivileged areas or super privileged areas.
We've all been
they're
teenagers, and we'll all agree.
absolute assholes for about 5 or 6
Yeah.
years. So if you've somebody to just try and get
Steer
you
you.
through that,
And
and
the
I
science
think,
is there, like the ACEs system, you know, about childhood trauma. And if
Yeah.
you have so many ACEs, you're more likely to get down this road. So
Yeah.
the proof is in the pudding. If you can intervene early on
Yeah.
and show people, that's why if you show them, look at, there is this path here.
But it doesn't help when these kids during these years see in the paper 18-year-old spends 40 grand on a family holiday, and you're like, what 18-year-old spend? Like, I think that's far-fetched.
I don't think these kids are reading the papers. I don't think these kids
No, but
are engaging with
but
media at all.
Media is the new age. Social media. People see on social media.
But I don't think they're seeing Nicola Tallant and what she would like to say about it. I think they're seeing, you know, their peers. They're seeing their people within their
But
community.
you don't
putting
think
up all
that
those.
that can go around. No, you don't think that.
If it's
people
out there, it could go to
It's
them,
out
yeah.
there that it can go to them. Like, be honest. Is any 18-year-old spending 40 grand on a family holiday? One every 50 million. It's. I don't believe that's true for a second. That any 18-year-old is spending 40 grand on a family holiday. None of them. And I think that's thrown out there. And then it is easy for anybody to hear that and say it to someone else. And that goes around, especially in underprivileged areas, when kids see the older lads or see the young fellas who are selling drugs. And then it's easy to sort of go, well, at 18, there's young fellas out there spending 40 grand on a family holiday. Fuck that. Why would I go and do a 9 to 5 when I can just go on
Like
to
I
the
said,
block?
we're products of our environment. We like materialistic things. You know?
I was interviewing a guy once who was very high up in an organised crime gang, and he was talking about how he started, and he had started by working for a very senior, now very senior criminal figure. He started on in the flats complex selling drugs when he was 15 or 16. Okay, and he was all bravado and tough about it all, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I just wanted to know." He actually ended up telling me that he saw 2 options in life. One was to become a drug dealer, or the other one was to become a drug addict. That's the only 2 options he saw in life. And when we went back a little bit, you find 2 alcoholic parents, kids that are thrown out of the flat during the day and night, locked out, nowhere to go, no one looking after them.
Addiction rife in the family.
Absolutely. And found his way in a sport, you know, and was very good at that, was able to handle himself, went into drug dealing and ended up chaotic, as most of it all ends pretty much chaotic, most of it. You talk about 1 in 50 million, 1 in 50 million of them maybe make it to retirement, I don't know, but it always goes chaotic. But I thought the saddest thing of all that was that he'd only seen 2 options in life.
Yeah. That's
And I
scary to
think
that,
that's why we all have to take responsibility for these kids in these areas and try and work out what it is to do. How do we show them there's other options than 2 in life?
Start a
You know?
podcast.
Yeah.
No, but that is nearly the plan with the pod. That's where it nearly started growing towards, because we know the younger lads are listening. We know it's nice to, like, both of us are sober. You know what I mean? We're trying to put it out there that you don't have to drink. Like, it's like an Irish bleeding nature. You have to drink. You have to drink with the boys when you're 15, 16. You see the boys doing drugs, you have to try it with them. You don't have to do any of that shit. Same with drug taking and bleeding, drug selling and things
And you
like
see,
that.
I think when you get into the criminal system, the criminal justice system, whatever way it is you go into it, whether you've been involved in some sort of a row or whatever, or you've held drugs for somebody, it's really difficult to get back out and to get back on the straight and narrow and to come out of the system unscathed. I think it's really difficult. I think one little mistake and the rest of your life is nearly, you know, drawn out for you.
Yeah.
And I don't think they understand that. And I also don't think that young kids understand the type of world they're going into. I mean, it's
Well,
all
nobody
very
is
well.
sitting them down and educating them.
Nobody's sitting them down. And like, maybe they're just not doing it the right way, because I think there is a way of educating everybody, but you just have to go at it in a different way. But I mean, for me, when you look at having 25 pairs of runners, I mean, do you really want to find yourself dead in the bloody pair of runners?
What,
like,
bleed
are they
snout
worth
big
that?
Galvin? Because I'm sure of more than 25 in the gap,
Come
Nicola.
here,
But you know what
Nicola,
I mean?
my
If
man's
you-
going to
if you
go on to
make
you
the
after this.
If you make the decision that you will go into drug dealing because you want that pair of bloody runners, will they be worth it when you're lying dead?
No.
I tell you one
You
thing,
know.
there's plenty other ways to get 25 pairs of runners.
I agree with you, 100%. You know, there is a course. And
that's what we're
far
trying to do now.
and far, you know, more honourable ways or whatever. I mean, to earn an honest living is a gift in itself, and to be able to lie in bed at night and not worry too much about what's coming at you or
Or not
what you've
looking over
done.
your
or-
shoulder, sort
yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, look, does it take age to understand that? Because I mean, I think a lot of teenagers, and no matter what area they're from, a lot of them are living like every day's the last.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
They're
But
just
Then you said it doesn't come with age, but sometimes like some people make mistakes when they're teenagers, 16, 17, 18, and like them mistakes stay with you with the system that
That's
we
it.
have.
That's
you know,
it,
and
yeah.
we've discussed this. We had Lim Rowan on a few weeks ago, and when we discussed this, like, should someone who made a mistake when they're 16 still be paying for that mistake 24 years later when they're settled down raising kids? You know, so maybe that needs to be looked at as well.
there's lots of things that need to be looked at and changed and evolved, like the media is, like we all are. I think, you know, what you need is as many voices at the table
Definitely, yeah.
as possible.
Exactly.
You know.
And what you were saying about the funding, like you were saying how it's highlighted about the funding in the NSE and stuff like that. So my question would be, how can you throw so much money at a problem and it still be a problem? So the money's obviously going into the wrong areas. They're not addressing the problem. They're probably throwing money at it to say, well, look, we put 100 million into this last year. We tried, you know. So maybe they need to approach it
I
from a
think you're
different angle.
probably. I think the biggest problem we have at the moment as a society is that we're trying to fight something that there's a huge demand for.
Well, the war on drugs,
There's
that's not a war. You're not winning that.
There
That's
is an
a fact.
insatiable appetite for cocaine, and everybody is chaotically flapping about looking for answers to where it's causing the problems and how to stop this and how to stop that. But all the while, there are people out there, no doubt tonight, putting their hand in their pocket to buy 100 quid's worth of coke.
But from all walks of life.
Oh, apps, the middle classes, are the biggest problem when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And they have this, I've said it before, it always just amazes me. Educated people who have a fundamental problem with eating a hamburger
Yeah.
because they can't tell which cow it came from. So it has to be organic or it has to be this, or they're vegans or something. And yet they go out and they will stuff Coke up their nose
Off
to
a
beat the
rusty
band.
coin or
Yeah.
a dirty
And
key.
where it came from doesn't bother them.
Yeah.
And who has been devastated all along the way. And I'm talking about from Venezuela all the way on the journey to, you know,
Their nostril.
the nostril. Yes,
John, they-
farm to fork.
Yeah, basically.
Kind of a
John, their problem
mentality.
is, Nicola, they've
What's
too
wrong
much
with
money.
them?
They've
Yeah.
too much money. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there is that and young people have a lot more money than they ever had. And they're willing to spend it on this. And Coke still has an image that it's cool. And
Well-
it's never been tackled from a
Yeah.
campaign point of view.
No.
In the same way other products have, like cigarettes and things like that. You know, people will always take cocaine. I'm not naive.
That's
or
what I was
stupid.
going to
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
They will always take it.
Yeah.
But you can attach a shame to it
Of course, yeah.
through marketing and through other...
Does that even work though? You know what I mean? Like
Well-
if you like your smokes and you go in and you see a smoke box with blade and someone's teeth on it, you don't give a rat's. Give me the John Blue. Do you
yeah,
know
but
what I mean?
some people won't, you know, and some people will think twice.
Yeah.
You said like the shame attached to it. You always see, you know, like someone in the media when it comes out that they were caught sniffing coke and they're like,
Yeah.
oh, shame, this, that, and the other. I know this might be took literal, but everyone does coke now. I know we don't do it, like, so it's not technically not
don't.
100%.
Yeah.
That's what I meant. We,
Yeah.
not 100%, but like everywhere you go, it's being done. Like,
Yeah.
I think as a society,
In every class as well.
people
yeah.
people are holding on to it like, oh, that's, you don't be doing that, but everyone is doing it. So I think
Yeah.
as soon as we start to accept that, like, it's gonna be everywhere you go, it's there. And I've seen it. I've been at parties where people will openly sniff it, and then I've been at parties with people like, oh no, I don't do that. And then you walk into the toilet and there they are hiding because they're doing a sniff, and you're like, Jesus, grow up, like, you know what I mean? At least man up and say you're going into doing.
Yeah.
And then we
Yeah.
can move on with life. That's, do you know what? It's actually funny. That's something that I've often found a good judge of character. So you'd meet somebody and like the little icebreaker, like where you're from, blah blah blah. But it's not until you break down that barrier that, like, oh yeah, you do drugs, right? Let's move on with life, and you get comfortable with people then, because I think that humanises people more, and people get comfortable around you then. They're not hiding it. But I think as a society, we're still kind of holding on to the fact that some people are ashamed to do drugs. You should open up about it, and then we can address how are you abusing it, or is it a recreational thing? You do it 2 times a month or whatever, or have you genuinely got a problem? Like, you can't go out for a drink without doing a sniff, and then we address that, and then we get around the
agree.
problem. Then
I agree with all that.
I think we're actually a very particularly traumatised country.
we have a hangover, I think, from the Catholic Church's grip on this
I'd
country.
agree with you totally, yeah.
Yeah,
I think
and-
we do. And I think parents and grandparents have had so much trauma
Yeah,
and they've tried to parent with that trauma.
Yeah,
Definitely.
And it's come down all
generational
the
cycle.
generational thing. You
and
know.
then if you even go
and
into
addiction
the,
is
yeah,
huge. Like, I
speaking
mean,
of addiction, the heroin epidemic,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
absolutely crippled this city, and it's only when I'm with me ma or dad and they'd see someone and they'd be like, see him, I used to hang around with him and his brother, and you'd be like, yeah, grand, and he'd be like, oh yeah, his brother overdosed when he was like 20, and you're like, Jesus Christ, like, that was 30 odd years ago, like, that was nearly a lifetime ago for him, and you only realise it then, you're like, that actually, the trauma that would have instilled on the likes of our parents then,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You'd be like, they're constantly going to funerals of somebody that they loved and grew up with and they consider a friend, and then everybody knows someone in town who has a family member who's
100%.
Yeah,
affected
yeah.
by heroin, like, it's crazy. So
It's a lot less now, but there's still
Yeah.
people that I grew up with who's at the going down that road, which is madness in this day and age. I think with all the things we've learned since the heroin came in and crippled the city, you think.
But I
no
think it
one's gonna go
shows you
down that road.
it comes down from trauma then, as in nobody just decides to do heroin tomorrow. It's trauma. They've kind of been forced that way, and as I said,
they're trying to
we
put
ha-
us in
yeah,
the
we have
you know,
that trauma,
some
but
pain. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we're slowly moving the meter in the right direction. I think we're a very open society in Ireland. I know some people might disagree, but I think if you look at the grand scheme of things, you go to some other countries that are more close-minded than us. Now, don't get me wrong, some are probably more open-minded, but I think we're slowly getting there. And from being on the ground, being in these parties, being in society, talking to families, people are more accepting now than they were when, I'd say even 10 years ago.
Yeah, and it's kind of coming in with mental illness as well,
Yeah,
isn't it?
people
You
are
know,
addressing
and all
it.
of that. So we're sort of all of a sudden not looking at it. You're looking at it with sympathy. You're looking at somebody
And
in
instead of
addiction-
shame.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Definitely.
yeah.
Breaking the stigma.
No, I think
Yeah.
yeah,
100%.
yeah.
Well, look, this is,
we
there
are.
was a jolly hair, and anyways, what the boys, I'm sweating.
Yeah.
Am I looking fresh on that, Nicola?
And you're still jigging the legs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Kill you out
that's
there.
what I was only saying.
Yeah.
I was looking back at the YouTube videos of us, and my legs constantly go in every single look. I'm like, I don't even feel that.
imagine your step count after this.
Yeah, I'd say he's gone crazy. Yeah, he's
Through
getting
the roof.
exercise.
But now, look, Nicola, it was a pleasure to have you in, like,
Yeah.
really, and I have a lot of respect for you for
coming in, yeah, Nicola. Like-
Even being so open with us, and most of it, most of it. But yeah, no, it was a pleasure talking.
No,
to you.
thanks for coming in. Like I said, this is going to be mad. I think this is...
It's a mad one.
It is.
alright.
I was saying it to the lads. So when your number was sent on to me,
Yeah.
the first thing I said was, that's not how. I was like, how am I going to be ringing hell? Like, this is a setup. And they said, you can't send that number to anybody. And I was like, all right, they're fucking serious.
Yeah.
So when I rang you and you answered, I was like,
City is that number.
It's going on Dundee
Yeah.
after this. For an All-Ireland ticket.
yeah. Nicola Tallant selling a PlayStation 5. But I couldn't believe it. I was like, I'm at the minute on the phone to fucking Nicola Tallant for 45 minutes. And even on the way over, I was saying to Terence, I have a weird feeling I never got this with a guest. I still can't believe this is going to happen. Because
Right.
it's just two worlds colliding, Nicola. It's nuts.
Yeah.
And
it
so
is,
that's why we are so grateful and thankful that you come on. And I don't know, I'm curious to see the reception of this.
You were open and honest with us, and that's
Yeah.
all we really, like we said, we weren't coming in to sting you. How would we be to sting you? You know what I mean? We're two dopey cunts just winging it with a podcast.
All right, sound, Terence, yeah, thanks.
I am going to bring you down
Yeah,
in me
enough.
bollocks. But yeah, no, like we only had some things to ask and things like that. We weren't trying to sting you. And look, listen, we got.
I have a
answers.
question that Terence asked me to ask you. He wants to know how much I would.
Yeah, a few bobbing
much I'm
anyways.
worth.
Yeah, a few bobbing.
Got an end of a score.
Yeah, we're going for a drink after this, Nicola, yeah? Listen, that's a wrap. And anyways for this week, episode 34, done and dusted. Boom!
Take us out, Johnny.
Subscribe to this podcast for free on the Go Loud app.
What you waiting for? Put your back in it. Just a little more. Throw your weight in it now. Tell your body you can. Walk it hard and long. When you finish that
The hip knocker.
song, go down.